Welcome back to John's Films. I got a comment on the channel the other day that really flattered me. It was, how do you get your footage so crispy? And I laughed because, well, um, uh, wasn't always that way. In fact, I've finally got it to a point where I'm almost happy with it. So I want to share 3 things that you can do to make your footage as crispy as possible. Now, the 3 things that you need to focus on, the first is your lighting, the second is your focus, and the third is your post-processing. Now, you're trying to do the first 2 so that you don't have to do much of the third one. And what I mean by that, if we get our lighting right, for instance, right now, I've got light coming in from a key light up here, and this is going to sound expensive, but it's a $30 softbox from Amazon, link below. Further, I've got a light bouncing off the wall over here. Now this is a temperature controlled, intensity controlled light. Again, don't get worried, it's a $30 light from Amazon. So the way this one works, I'm able to bounce it off the wall to get some fill back on the opposite side of the key light. And the last thing I've got is a light fixture hanging above me, which gives me some definition across the shoulder. It's called a hair light, and in the hair. One of the things that I really like about these lights, this one in particular, is that it's adjustable, both in intensity but also in the color of the light. And that helps me set the mood in the room without having to do a lot of coloring later. The light that I've got up in this softbox, I tend to use a hue light. And it's not always ideal because if you shoot at the wrong frame rates, you'll get some flickering through your footage. You usually see it in the brighter spots of the film. But here you can see I can control it with my phone, which is nice because I can use it with my external monitor to understand exactly where I am. And I do that with something called false color. False color, pretty simply, takes the brightness values of every pixel in your image, so all the way bright to all the way dark, and maps them to a color. So I can very quickly look up at the monitor on top of the camera and see that everything that is bright red is blown out. It's too bright. And everything that's dark or dark blue is too dark. And so you're not really going to see it, or there'll be a lot of noise in that footage. So what you do is you set yourself up for in between what they've got mapped on this false color as a greenish to tannish color. And that tells you that it's right in the sweet spot. It's right where the brightness needs to be so that you can get the best image out of your camera. The second thing that you need to get right if you want to make sure that you are in crispy focus is actually the focus. And to get that right, there's a lot of tools you can use, but when you're filming yourself especially, it can be very difficult. So again, the external monitor here has something called focus peaking. Now a lot of cameras have it. The Blackmagic Pocket Cinema 4K I'm working on right now does. The GH5 in the background there, it does. A lot of more modern cameras have this. And it's called focus peaking. And what it does is it draws on your image for you bright lines where you are in perfect focus. So right now I can see, you should grow a beard obviously because that really helps. I can see in my beard a lot of bright green, which tells me that it's in great focus. My eyes are lit up green, my hair's green, and it's because everything that's in that spot is really in perfect focus. And that's what we really need to know, because if I see that, I don't have to mess with the settings, I don't have to mess with the stuff. The second thing you need to do to make sure you get crispy footage is be in perfect focus. To do that, you could film yourself, use a string, measure out how far something is, make sure it's in perfect focus, use the string again, make sure you're that far from your camera. And that can be a challenge, or there's some electrical tools out there that can really help us. The best one's called focus peaking. A lot of cameras have this, there's even some iPhone apps that offer it, and I've got it on an external monitor here so that I can really see what I'm doing as I'm shooting the footage. What focus peaking does is turn everything that is in perfect focus, bright green, or color of your choice, on the monitor. So now I'm able to see my beard, grow one, it helps, is in perfect focus because it's lit up bright green. My hair, my eyes, everything that is in this perfect plane is in perfect focus. I can take a quick glance up there and know that I am in focus. It's the same place that I've got my false color, so I'm able to look at that as well and know I'm in balanced lighting and I'm perfectly focused. What I also like about this is that when I'm in perfect focus, I'm using such a wide aperture. So that's that f-stop number on your lens, f, in this case it's f1.2. And what that means is the opening inside the camera that lets light through it is as big as I can get on this lens. It's interesting, it's the inverse of what you might expect. An aperture of 1.2 is really wide, an aperture of f20 would be really small. And the reason is it's a ratio of the width of the aperture against the length of your lens. So right now it's at 1.2, which means 1.2 times the opening inside equals the length or depth, length of this lens. So let's look at what that does though. It creates a very shallow depth of field. I'm in perfect focus right now. If I back it up, I'm just out of focus. And it probably looks okay, but it does not look as sharp and crispy as this, which is why it's important that I make sure I stay right in this maybe 6 inches, or else it'll quickly get out of focus. What this does is create some separation for me from the background, and the background looks blurry. If I had it up at f20, everything in the screen would be in focus, and then you would see the mess that's back there. Well, we really don't need that. So here we are back in focus, and you see how fast I was able to get it there just by looking up at that monitor. The third thing we need to do is focus on our post-processing. For that, we'll jump over to the computer. Here we are on the computer. We can see where I've got my false color turned on, etc. I have a group set up for this footage. Now this is flat footage, it's B-RAW, Blackmagic's RAW, and so there's some freedoms I have with this because of that. I've got a lot more latitude in the way that I grade it, but I'm still going to follow the same basic structure that I would follow normally. So I'm setting up a few nodes for myself, and my whole goal here is to, one, make it look pleasing, but two, further the distinction between the background and me in the foreground. So I'll start with a label, a node to do white balance. Next, I've got a node for contrast. Pop one in for saturation. Then I'm going to put a look on it, which is typically a LUT, or you can tune it to your taste, before it goes into my skin. Skin here, probably only need one node. Here in the skin, we're going to make sure my skin tones are up to snuff. And then we'll get down into our post-processing look. So that's just cleaning it up if there's anything we need to do. And then I'll put some sharpening on it. Remember, we're trying to make this look crispy as possible. So we start with the white balance, and I shot this in camera, and this is what I mean by getting the lighting right. The white balance is pretty dead on. I don't need to worry about it. It's not tinged pink, it's not tinged blue. It's in a good spot. Contrast, however, because this was shot log, I'm now going to need to take that and make it a little deeper. So using the wheels here on my panel just for speed, but generally speaking, what I'm doing is taking lift and dropping that down to provide some depth to the footage. Take my gain and pull it up. Here we go. I'm going to look at my midtones, which are right around in here. Make sure that they're in a reasonable spot. My forehead is this peak up here, so I've got to watch how high I go on that. But overall, just getting some contrast into it right now. It doesn't have to be a perfect look. Here with the saturation, I'm going to add color back into this. You can see it starting to come back in. Get a little punch to it. There we go. All right. Now with the look, I'm going to pull, let's see how it looks throughout the clip. Yeah, it looks pretty good. All right. Now here I would normally go grab a LUT, but what I'm going to do is, because you likely wouldn't have it, I'm going to show you what I would do just to add some distinction to it. So what I'm going to do is take my lift and just pull it off towards the blue side just a touch. I'm going to take the gain, you got it, orange and teal kind of look. A little more orangey there on the skin. And I'm going to put some darkness back into the lower side. So we'll pull that back down. Again with the wheel, but you can grab this horizontal bar right here and drag it left. And I'm really just trying to draw more distinction between my skin and the background. Now, the next thing I'm going to do is jump into node 7 here. Node 7 is going to be my skin. and I'll qualify the skin out of here. So I'm going to use my qualifiers, which are here in the middle of the screen with the eyedropper. And I'm going to take the eyedropper, make sure it's on this selection, and then just drag it, click and drag across my forehead. Now I'll click this highlight button right here in the top, and it shows me what I'm keyed on currently. My job is to make only my skin show here, nothing to do with the furniture. I didn't think when I bought this furniture that I'd be filming in front of it because it's too close to skin tones. So I spend some time every time qualifying out the backdrop. And you can see what I'm doing. I'm attacking both sides here of the key on hue, saturation, and luminance. And I'm testing it. So I'm testing, where do I lose my skin? Where do I lose the desk? And what do I need to do to lose more desk than skin? You can see they're pretty close here with this lighting on hue and saturation. And if I take luminance, lose part of my face, and here, lose the top end of my face. All right. So it looks like it's not going to be that easy of a qualification. So I'm going to do something a little crazy. I'm going to start eating away at my face here. Soften a little bit more. Nope. And now I'm going to come back over here and denoise it. So this denoises the selection. I'm going to clean white. Clean white means everything that's showing, kind of grow it a touch. I'm going to take, on that same node, I'm going to take a circular power window, and I'm going to put it over my face. It doesn't move that much in this, and that'll be a spot where I can go through and track if I want to. Now, what we're trying to do here is isolate the skin as much as possible with this power mask. We could track it if we wanted to, but for this tutorial, we'll skip that part to keep this brief. And now that I've got my skin isolated here, I will spend a little bit more time trying to get the qualification better. So I can blur it a touch. I'm going to pull down on the denoising. I still don't like that I've got that bar in there, so I'm going to check out to see if I can get rid of it by moving my saturation up. Nope. And my luminance up. Nope. Move. Lose part of the face first. Well, that'll work. So I've pulled out a little bit of my skin. It's in the darker areas, though, so the saturation and darkness we wouldn't expect to be that much anyway. And now I'm going to come down and choose my vector scope. This allows me to see once I turn on the skin tone indicator, and I'm going to go 2x zoom just so that I can really see it. You can see here I'm pushed up on the right side of this skin tone indicator. It's basically where you want to be. I might want to pull it a little closer to the indicator, and so I'll do that because the skin's looking a little pink to me. And to do that, I'm going to start at the low end of the scale. So that would be the lift or the darks, and I'm going to pull them ever so slightly down, and you can watch for any changes over here. If I go crazy, obviously I just turn myself green. So what I really want to do is and I'm pulling this ball very gently. You can see it almost moving over here in the lift, just to pull out just a little bit of that pink. Let's see what we got here. And now you can see I share a little bit more of that line. I think I like the way the rest of this looks. Now you'll notice I've got some waves flowing through here, and that's because of those lights like I was mentioning. I'm going to go into my OpenFX panel and deflicker it here on this look node. And that will fluoro lights. Once that renders out, it'll be pretty clean. And then finally, I'm going to go into sharpening. And when I'm sharpening this, I don't really want to sharpen everything. I only want to sharpen me. So again, we're going to use a mask. And I've got just here a linear mask should work. I'll pull it up around me. Because it's out of focus in the background, I'm okay if it gets a little sharper back there. It doesn't really bother me. If I really wanted to get specific, I could always rotoscope it and then track it so that it stayed just on my face, skin, and shirt, but that's okay. So now I'm going to come into my blur node, and this is always interesting. You can either go to sharpen or, from a blur as a shortcut, grab the radius here and pull all three of them down just a touch, and it will sharpen it up. So you can see now I've introduced some noise, but if I go back up, This is where it was at stock. That's a little too far. So you only want to do this a little bit. And if you decide, you know, that's too much noise, you got some options. A lot of people will add a noise reduction node right here. And if you have the studio version of Resolve, then you can use noise reduction here in your motion effects. If you don't, then you can follow my tutorial to get noise reduction in the free version. You'll find that in my Play channel, and if you click the link above. So here's a look that I think I'm kind of happy with. It is a little purple in the backgrounds, so I'd probably come to here, take some of the reds out of this. Not bad. And that gives me a decent look overall. Here on the end, still not a perfect fan of that and that key. Pull that up a little. Too white. There we go. It's better. I'm going to saturate the skin a little bit more. I always like to go too far and then pull it back to where I think it looks about right. It's pretty good. That's totally usable. It's a little purple tinted still. I'd work on that a little bit longer. But overall, I've now got a look where I've sharpened the face. I've got a background that's separated from the foreground. And I've got me as the center of attention here, which is what we want in this footage. There you have it. There are the 3 things that you need to pay attention to if you're going to try and make crispy footage. Again, it was lighting, it was focus, and it's post-processing. Thanks for watching John's Films. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do jump in and subscribe, and like this video so others can find it. Thanks again for watching, and have a great day.